All right, now we're rolling. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the CI Chit Chat. Mitch Hora here with you, talking CI, carbon intensity, basically the carbon footprint of our production. If you're new to this thing, so essentially, talk about how we can quantify our carbon footprint of the corn, soybeans we're producing. That's important as it ties into the supply chain, particularly the biofuel supply chain, which has the 45Z tax credit as a incoming potential opportunity here to compensate biofuel producers to decarbonize. And part of that decarbonization would tie in the corn, soybeans, or other feedstock that's going into those biofuels. So the quick update on 45Z is not a whole lot since we had our last chit chat. 45Z, went into law beginning part of this year on January 1. There are credits that are being sold and stuff, and maybe address that quick. You may have seen some of the headlines and stuff of different companies that have sold their tax credits. Green Plains was in the news here recently that they brokered a deal, right, and sold some of their tax credits recently. Green Plains owns multiple ethanol plants and based out of Nebraska. And so in Nebraska, they know that they'll have the opportunity to be on the Trailblazer pipeline, right, to do the CO2 sequestration. They already have a pipeline out there, and they're going to capture the CO2 that would have left, the ethanol plant through the fermentation process. They're going to capture that CO2, put it in the pipeline that's already in the ground, and pump it out to Wyoming and bury it, 2 miles deep out there. So since they have that pipeline already, Green Plains and a lot of the other ethanol plants, especially in Nebraska, they will be able to get 32 CI points of reduction according to the current GREET 45Z CF GREET model. They'll get 32 points of reduction with which under 45Z is worth about 64 cents a gallon if they are already at 50, a CI score of 50 or below. It would be up to 64 cents a gallon, uh, for having that carbon capture already. So anyway, Green Plains, multiple others that know that they're going to be in the money with 45Z. They are starting to sell their tax credits. And so keep in mind that is just a tax credit. So that's the dollar value at the end. It's a tax credit that the ethanol plant can create and either utilize themselves or sell them in the secondary market. We've got videos and stuff that we've done with Mickelson and Co. They're a tax credit broker that we have a relationship with, and they're out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. They say that these type of tax credits are selling in the open market for about 92 cents on the dollar. The more the better your balance sheet and the backing that you've got on the tax credits and the volume of credits that you've got can drive the price up or pull it down if you don't have good protection. So those credits are being sold, but that is just biofuel producers selling tax credits for what they are doing at the facilities with carbon capture or with better energy utilization. None of them are taking credit for their low carbon corn or soybeans or whatever the feedstock is. The feedstock component and how the farmer gets tied in, that remains the missing component for 45Z. Now, we know that there is significant progress being made at USDA. We know that there's progress being made at the Department of Treasury. Now, obviously, since last week, no progress being made. Government shut down. So I'm sure it's delaying things, but we know that there's significant progress being made, and I haven't heard or been paying attention here in the last couple days about what's going on with government and are they going to get things open back up sometime soon? Or are they going to keep playing games and dorking around? But um, once they get the government open back up, be able to continue to make progress and still think that we will see some updates and rules about 45Z over the coming weeks and couple months, likely yet this year, is what my folks in DC are saying. So, progress being made, credits already starting to get sold, money starting to move for some of the decarbonization efforts. and companies taking advantage of these credits. So if you're tied in with an ethanol plant, you should absolutely be talking to Mickelson and Co., talking with your CPA firm, making sure that you're in position and making sure that you know who's going to buy your tax credits if you need to sell them, what's going to be the value of it, what type of data do you need to collect, what's the process going to be, kind of working it from the buy side back to creating the assets. So um, it's trying to make sure you got that whole process, put together and ready to go. But on the farmer side, like I said, still waiting for some of the rules from USDA and from the Department of Treasury. It's looking good. And so, with that being said, make sure again that you're documenting everything. And we've got a software that can help you do that at topsoil.ag, but you've got to have records and documentation in order to pass third-party audit. Those records would be about your fertilizer, rates, products, your planting information, your harvest information and yields. Did you use cover crops? And if so, what were the particulars of that? Documenting your tillage or lack thereof, manure, all of those components. You've got to document. They all tie into your CI score and what I'm hearing coming down the pipe for updated GREET models, updated feedstock calculators to be utilized as tied into the GREET model. So we know that things will be updated. We're scoring farmers for free at topsoil.ag. We know that that score will be updated. I've been talking about that really from the beginning, that we've always known that they're going to continue to improve the GREET models, improve the feedstock calculators, and change the scores. But the core data components remain the same. And that's why we still encourage farmers. Let's get the data collected. Let's be ready to go. Trying to do it as inexpensive as we can and make sure that trying to be as risk adverse as possible. One of those things I want to hit on is the R&D credits is one of the ways that we are helping to de-risk this. And I think R&D credits is a huge, huge opportunity. Why I keep just harping on it so much. I think if you're a farm, especially if you're a farm that's at least 500 or 1,000 acres, you've got to have a phone call with our folks and see about the opportunity to go and get R&D tax credits. R&D tax credits, I've talked about it ad nauseum, but anyone that's missed it, R&D tax credits is research and development tax credits. It has nothing to do with 45Z at all. It has nothing to do particularly with ag and farming at all. R&D is just an accounting category of your expenses, and R&D credits can tie to any potential U.S. taxpayer could tie in and get these credits. So all that we're doing is instead of categorizing all of your inputs, all of your expenses, just as normal business expenses, categorize the applicable expenses as research and development. So things that you're doing as you're experimenting with new hybrids or experimenting with new cover crop species or experimenting with new biologicals or on our farm, we had some of our equipment that we retrofitted to be able to put on cover crops and stuff. And the seeding equipment itself that we're depreciating, that doesn't necessarily count, but the add-on components that we had like custom made, that and the labor and everything that went into it, that can be categorized as research and development because it's experimental equipment and it's pretty pretty big dollar figure. So makes a lot of sense for us to be able to use the R&D credits. We're doing R&D credits, number one, because there's no money flowing to the farmers yet from 45Z, and we want to help farmers expand and be able to have other money generating opportunities. Number two, Continuum's mission is to help 1 million family farms improve their profitability via improving their soil health, right? Profitability through soil health. We are not, our mission is not get everybody's CI score to a zero. Our mission is not do the third party audits on 7 billion bushels. Those are not our mission. Our mission is solely focused on building soil health and improving family farm profitability. And so we want to help bring as many opportunities to family farms as possible. I think 45Z is still obviously, the biggest opportunity, huge, huge potential, and that's why we're harping on that. But R&D tax credits, they're working really well so far. Every farmer that has been eligible that we've passed along to our partners that do the R&D evaluations, every single one of our farmers are continuing in the program and moving forward. And the average value that they are gaining there is about $11 an acre. All right. Topsoil Connect, our fee of helping to do all the data stuff is $3 an acre, and our farmers are getting an average return of 11. But what's critically important is that's $11 per year, and only in this upcoming tax filing, you can look back to 2022 and get your tax credits from 22, 23, 24, and tax year 2025. So potential for 4 years of look back, getting these credits. It's because of the big beautiful bill. They fixed this tax credit program. It is an absolutely huge opportunity. You've got to be looking at it. And again, it's how do we help farms get some money flowing to you, help you to utilize your data. And as we gather the data one time in topsoil, we want you to be able to utilize it multiple times over. Use it for 45Z, use it for R&D credits. We also have our partners that do cost share. They do the paperwork and stuff for you, the BS that we don't want to deal with as farmers. We got these other partners. They do the paperwork. They help with the compliance and they just get a percentage only if you get a contract. So it's new money coming in, and there's only a fee to these guys at the end. So pretty cool deals. Just want to continue to harp on it because I just think it's such a big opportunity that you need to be looking at R&D credits. If you're not a farmer, you should be looking at them too on your business. Continuum has been utilizing R&D credits for years. I just didn't know that they were applicable to farmers until a couple months ago. And we have our CPA firm that does these credits. I think it's a very fair percentage that they charge at the end, a success fee that they charge at the end, and we're having really good success with it. So R&D credits, I think you got to be looking at, and basically a way to, again, get some money kind of flowing. The cash would actually transact, when you file your taxes in, say, April, but a pretty, you know, it's an opportunity that we can see not that far down the road. It's something that I think a lot of farmers should be taking advantage of. It's part of the tax code, part of the tax system. You should be aware of it and utilizing it to your advantage. Um, I think that's the core updates and stuff here for today. Want to hit maybe on some of the other things that we're doing here this fall as we're preparing for next year. The main one, of course, being planting cover crops. If you're thinking about using cover crops, you're thinking about CI, how to lower your CI score on your 2026 crop, using cover crops is the best way to do that. The there we don't have final rules, of course, right? But in some of the draft guidance I was put out, and I have no reason to believe that this will be changed, but in the draft guidance I was put out, the rules around cover crops was simply to follow your local NRCS guidelines, meaning guidelines around species of cover crops that are applicable to you, planting rates, planting dates, methodologies. The rules that the USDA put out, the draft of the rules, just said use your local NRCS guidelines. So meaning the rules coming out from your CSP or EQIP about dates and rates and that kind of thing. So for us, a full rate of cereal rye is like 45 pounds of cereal rye, but you've got to make sure that that's based on the pure live seed, right? If you've got seed that has crappy germination, you're going to have a higher rate applied in order to get a actual pure live seed rate that fits your local NRCS guidelines. So cover crops, absolutely one of the main things you should be doing to lower your CI score. Utilize your local NRCS guidelines if you need help on some of that stuff. We may be able to help you out, but it's, call your local NRCS folks or a quick Google search. You should be able to find what you need. But 45 pounds is really the core target, especially if you're using wheat or rye as a cereal crop to overwinter for you. What we're also doing is cereal rye ahead of soybeans, but doing a lot of experimenting and just diversifying to utilize wheat and oats and other crops, especially ahead of corn. So some of these other crops that don't get as aggressive in the spring, they easier to manage, easier to kill. They're, cereal rye, it can be 20 inches one day and uh, feel like it goes to, 30, 35 inches just overnight. If things get wet and whatnot, you're not able to terminate it. It can get big really fast. So using oats, wheat, other cover crops that can be easier to manage and still get the credit for counting as a cover crop. Again, some of the details we don't know yet. I don't know when we're going to know the details, but cover crop has consistently been one of the core practices in these programs, and that's really the main one to be thinking about here this fall. Other stuff would be improving your nutrient management. Use a stabilizer if you haven't in the past, or be thinking about split applying some of these or lowering your synthetic fertilizer inputs. Really trying to optimize that, whether it be with stabilizers, split applying, biologicals, those kind of things can all help you to optimize your fertilizer usage and continue to drive big yield. And yield is a big part of CI. That's why I like it. That's part of why I like CI. It's not just, hey, do some of these decarbonization things and forget about yield. It's you got to be efficient with your inputs and continue to drive the yield outcomes and continue to incentivize productivity, which I think is great. Um, One of the things that we're doing, and some of you follow on social media, we're out at the farm yesterday. I got to head out there here today as well and take Zoom meetings from the farm here today. But we harvested our relay crop here recently, and we have a couple different experiments going on with relay crop. For anyone that hasn't been following me, relay crop is a concept that's similar to double cropping, except that the difference is the crops actually overlap each other. So in a double crop, you would plant your winter crop this time of year, right, in the fall, and then harvest your winter crop in the spring, usually wheat, rye, oats. But plant your winter crop and then harvest it, and then plant your soybeans or whatever your secondary crop is going to be after harvesting, and then harvest that secondary crop in the fall as normal. That's a double crop system. In relay cropping, what we do is we harvest our corn, then we plant cereal rye this time of year. Most of our rye for that we're relaying next year, we already have in the ground. It's already a couple inches tall. We've had really good, warm conditions, of course, and a lot of cover's taken off. But we plant our cereal rye in the fall, plant our soybeans into the rye in the spring. But instead of terminating the rye like we normally would in our cover crop program, we let the rye continue to grow. Then, usually the first week of July or so, we take out the combine and harvest the rye over the top of the growing soybeans. And rye works well because the rye, when it's fully headed out and mature, especially Elbon rye, which is what we use. It's a variety of rye, but Elbon rye will be 4 foot tall. The beans will only be about knee high come the first week, 1st of July. And we have some clearance there to be able to harvest the rye over the top of the growing soybeans. We then keep that rye as cover crop seed for the following year. Of course, you cannot keep hybrids back, but open varieties or open pollinated crops you can. So we keep that rye and utilize it as cover crop seed the following year. This year, our rye did really well. We had moisture, great moisture in the spring to support the rye and the soybeans, and the rye made 33 bushel the acre this spring. For our system, where the rye is a bonus crop, 30 bushel is really our target. Pretty dang good. 25 to 30 bushel is usually where we end up year over year, and especially with Elbon rye. And we plant the rye at a very low rate and don't use any fertilizer or anything like that. We've experimented with it, just doesn't help out. So we harvest that rye in the spring, made 33 bushel, and we come back. and harvest the soybeans here in the fall. The beans in the relay this year weren't anything amazing. We think especially in April or in August and September, we were just way too dry. And you're hearing this kind of across the board from a lot of the soybean yields that I'm hearing coming in. In the relay, those beans were doing in the upper 50s. I think the one trial averaged like 57, 58 bushel, which is not bad. The check strips in this field with no relay, they were doing like 60, 62. So we were maybe a couple bushels lower in the relay system. And again, attributing that just used up, the moisture that we had with the two crops, we used even more. And then of course we're running over some of the beans when we harvest the rye and losing some yield opportunity there. But still pretty dang good to be able to do 33 bushel rye and still make upper 50s, almost 60 bushel beans, um, with no fertilizer and only one pass of herbicide and no seed treatments, no nothing. Like it's making money. And we got to be creative to pay the bills. And relay cropping is one of those things that we have had really good success with. I think this year was our eighth year doing it. And as we want to diversify our ag landscapes and find new opportunities, I think growing our own cover crop seed and being able to sell that into local markets, I think it's a heck of an opportunity. Um, so that's what we've been doing on the rye and beans. We also had an experiment this year with Iowa Soybean Association and with Corteva, where they wanted us to try to relay crop wheat and beans. We've done this in the past. We've never been able to have very good success with it. And again, this year, the relay wheat and beans just did not work. And the problem in our system is that because relaying wheat and beans absolutely does work. It's just in our system, we've not been able to have good success. And the reason being is we solid seed the cereal crop over the winter time. So either with our drill or with our air seeder, we solid seed the wheat. And then in the spring, we drill in the soybeans. So it's a hodgepodge. They're all mixed together. They're not in 30-inch rows or anything. And then when it's time to harvest the wheat, which happens, still around that first week of July, those beans, the wheat is only, maybe 40 inches tall, and the beans are knee high, and there's just such a small amount of clearance between where the wheat seed heads are, especially when they kind of fall down when they get dry and they curl over. The wheat height differential between the wheat and the beans is just not enough to be able to harvest the wheat and not harm the beans. So unfortunately, we've not been able to harvest the wheat over the top of the soybeans. We would have just left the majority of the wheat out in the field because it would have been below the soybean canopy and would have made more of a mess than what it was worth. So rather than harvest the wheat in July, we harvested it just the other day with the beans. So the wheat has still been out there growing. We did hit the wheat with a shot of herbicide after it matured. So usually when we harvest the rye, then we come out there and spray the field. It's just a one pass herbicide program, just cleaning things up. We like to have really clean fields, and we've been really working our seed banks down. And we want to continue to maintain that and keep our herbicide costs crazy low. So we did that same thing, sprayed over the top of the wheat that had just matured and worked okay. The rye was much better at suppressing weeds than the wheat, even though they had the same herbicide program across. But we just harvested the wheat with the beans. Together, the two crops combined to be like 74, 75 bushel the acre. And now we're attempting to separate the wheat and the beans. We had a heck of a system rigged up. You can see it on my Facebook or Instagram story. We had a heck of a setup yesterday trying to separate the soybeans and the wheat, and get rid of some of the chaff and the crap that we harvested as well. It did not work. We attempted to run the wheat and the beans back through the combine and attempted to have the sieves really tightened down to be able to get the wheat down through the sieves and up into the grain tank. And then through the tailings is where we were trying to capture the soybeans and the tailings, and then get those into the seed tender coming out the side of the combine. Didn't work. So I got to head out, meeting with the a professional seed cleaner here today who's got a better system to separate the beans and the wheat. But anyway, long story short, it's experimenting with things on the farm, trying to get creative to diversify our cropping systems. As 45Z takes off, there's going to be more of a demand for cover crop seed and opportunity there for farms to get creative and grow it ourselves. Um, it's an opportunity that we've been using for 8 years and with really good success. I'm going to continue to do it. So anyway, just sharing ideas, things to think about, and experiments. But anyway, all right, we are at time. I'll let you guys go. Be safe out there in the fields. Hopefully things are going well for you. We've been just hammering through. At our place, we'll be done, God willing, we'll be done harvesting way earlier than ever before, which is great. Cruising through it. And anyway, we'll be back next week on the Chit Chat and keep you guys posted as there's more updates coming. But keep good records, be safe out there. We'll see you next week.